Tonight, mystery solved in a major Canadian heist. Snatched from the walls of a famous Ottawa hotel, the world-renowned portrait known as the Roaring Lion, retrieved in Rome.
This is the best day of our life.
On its way back home after an international investigation. Coming together face to face at Ground Zero. The day after a fierce face-off on the U.S. debate stage. The political clash here at home.
It's put up or shut up time for the NDP.
I'm not going to say our decision ahead of time.
And the prospect of an early election call. Plus, Francine's perilous path. And why you may not have to say goodbye to summer just yet.
We're going to get the most out of it, that's for sure.
Plus, a distressing rescue mission. The complicated efforts to free an entangled humpback whale.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. Finally, a crack in the case tonight of a famous Canadian portrait that was stolen and then replaced by a fake at an Ottawa hotel in a brazen heist. The picture of former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and taken by one of Canada's finest photographers, Yusuf Karsh, in 1941, has been located in Italy after a complex global investigation. The iconic image even featured on the back of the Bank of England's £5 note. CTV's Judy Trin on when the portrait will return home and the reaction from the hotel maintenance worker, who was initially a suspect.
So where was it taken from?
In here.
Okay. In the reading room.
Stolen nearly 3 years ago, this iconic portrait of Sir Winston Churchill, taken by the renowned photographer Yusuf Karsh, will soon return to the Chateau Laurier.
This is the best day of our life. We've been dreaming about this.
It was hanging on this side crooked.
Bruno Lair, a maintenance worker, discovered the original photograph of the British Prime Minister had been replaced by a fake. The theft happened in and around the weeks before and after Christmas 2021, during the COVID pandemic. But it wasn't detected until months later in August. Ottawa police initially considered Lair the prime suspect.
Because I found it and they thought it was an inside job. So basically, because I worked in maintenance, I knew how the picture was hung. Because basically, I hung the picture so I could undo it.
I never believed that he could be a suspect.
After a 2-year investigation that stretched from England to Italy and back to Canada, Ottawa police arrested a 43-year-old man in April. The real suspect, from Powassan, Ontario, has been charged with forgery, theft, and trafficking stolen property. His identity is under a publication ban. Police say the portrait was sold by a London auction house to a buyer in Italy. The sale happened in 2022 before hotel staff discovered the fraud.
The buyer, the auction house, did not know that it was stolen, and they have been nothing but cooperative with us.
Jerry Fielder, the director of the Yusuf Karsh estate, says he initially doubted this portrait would be found.
It was such a vanishing act and there was so little to go on. It just seemed like an impossible task. But the Ottawa Police Department stuck with it.
After renovations are complete, Churchill, protected by new security measures, will once again stare down at guests from this wall. And Lair will watch over him too. No longer a suspect, but an unsung hero.
When it does come back, I'm rehanging it.
Oh my God, you get dibs.
Yep, I got dibs on it.
Later this month, Ottawa police and hotel managers will travel to Rome for a ceremony to mark the success of this investigation. But it will take several more weeks before the portrait is shipped back to Ottawa. Omar.
On its way back home. All right, Judy, thank you. The Conservative leader today pledged a non-confidence motion with the aim of triggering an early election. And he issued a dare to the NDP leader, setting up a political clash that also includes the Liberals struggling in the polls when Parliament resumes next week. CTV's Mike Lacouture reports.
As the Liberal caucus meeting wraps up, the Prime Minister is picking up the pace in his attacks on Pierre Poilievre.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning.
And Justin Trudeau is trying to show his own team he's not running on empty.
I can't wait to continue getting into it this fall. with Poilievre, whose perspective is cuts are the only way forward?
Expect that message to continue from the Liberals who came into this retreat looking for a refresh and reboot following a summer of bad poll numbers and disaffected constituents.
I think we need to have a sharper focus on what Mr. Poilievre would and wouldn't do in this country. And those are the questions that need to be asked. When he's vague, we need to call him out on it. When he's attacking personally, we need to call out his hypocrisy.
It's put up or shut up time.
Back in Ottawa, the Conservative leader challenged Jagmeet Singh to bring down the government a week after the NDP ended its political pact with the Liberals.
The common sense Conservatives will put forward a non-confidence motion at the earliest possible opportunity.
At his caucus retreat in Montreal, Singh rebuffed the offer to help Poilievre trigger an election.
I say directly to Pierre Poilievre, I'm not going to listen to you. No, I'm not going to listen to your advice. You want to destroy people's lives. I want to build up a brighter future.
Senior sources in the NDP tell CTV News, despite the strategy session in Montreal, Singh isn't eager to send Canadians to the polls, and he won't be goaded into it. The Liberal House leader went one step further.
His announcement today is a political stunt. I think what Canadians want to see all of us as political parties doing is working for them, governing effectively.
Gould added she looks forward to starting that work on Monday, the first day of the fall parliamentary session, and the same day as two by-elections, each of which could change the political calculation for all parties in the House. Omar.
All right, Mike, thank you. With the deadline looming on a possible work stoppage at Air Canada, dozens of public and private business groups have sent a letter to the federal labor minister urging him to send the dispute to arbitration.
We need government to step up and try to address this as quickly as they possibly can.
The airline and the pilots union are far apart, and that means a lockout or strike notice could be issued as early as Sunday. The minister did not comment on the letter directly, but said today he's optimistic about a deal.
There's no reason for these parties not to be able to achieve a collective agreement. I'm asking them to knuckle down and get the deal done.
More than 67 million Americans tuned in to watch Kamala Harris and Donald Trump face off in last night's first and possibly only debate between the two candidates. And now the big question for both sides, locked in a dead heat: will it sway undecided voters? CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on the reaction.
Oh, say, can you see?
On the anniversary of 9/11, the worst terrorist attack on American soil, a rare moment of political unity. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris shaking hands. But last night, the gloves came off.
Wait a minute, I'm talking now.
They sparred over abortion, the economy, and who'd be the better president. But this had heads spinning.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
You talk about extreme.
The former president doubled down on a debunked racist conspiracy theory that migrants in Springfield, Ohio, are eating people's pets.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports at all.
I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here.
The rumor spread on right-wing websites repeated by Trump's running mate.
The city manager said there's no verifiable evidence. A lot of residents on the ground have said that there is.
In Arizona, a billboard says, "Eat less kittens, vote Republican." And calling herself a childless cat lady, Taylor Swift, the biggest star on the planet, officially endorsed Harris, telling her 283 million supporters to get out and vote.
Taylor Swift endorsed Madam VP Kamala Harris.
Trump says he's not a Swiftie or a fan, insisting that he won the debate against Harris and casting doubt on a rematch.
You know, when you win, you don't really necessarily have to do it a second time.
You are a disgrace.
But most polls show it was the vice president who tripped Trump up and put him on the defensive.
I don't know how anybody can spin this other than a pretty decisive defeat for Trump.
Harris not taking anything for granted.
So let's get out here for these next 56 days. Hard work is good work, and we will win.
So will this debate change hearts and minds in an election that's extraordinarily close? Both candidates can't afford to let up, taking their battle back to the campaign trail. Omar?
All right, Joy, thanks. Hurricane Francine made landfall, lashing Louisiana as a Category 2. The massive storm drenching communities close to New Orleans with flash flooding, powerful winds churning at 160 kilometers per hour. Gas stations shut down, flights canceled, businesses boarded up, and a National Guard truck veering off the road. A state still bearing the scars of past hurricanes, now contending with another punishing storm surge. At least 10 people are injured and dozens of homes destroyed in Southern California as 3 rapidly growing wildfires burn out of control. Devastating scenes near Los Angeles. Rescue teams reached this woman walking without shoes or socks just in time. Time-lapse video shows a wall of fire sweeping across the hillside. A recent heat wave is making matters worse for firefighters as more than 100,000 acres have burned in less than a week. Here in Canada, forecasters are predicting late summer warm weather to stick around into the fall, but there could be a downside come winter. CTV's Sarah Plowman explains.
Like these leaves, summer is hanging around.
Like summer 2.0, man.
Not ready to step aside, even if fall officially shows up later this month.
We can't ask for better weather.
For those who want to park their parka a little longer, the fall forecast looks favorable.
But it is showing from coast to coast to coast almost that everywhere in Canada, it looks like for September, October, November is going to be warmer than normal.
An encore to a string of warm seasons and months, a pattern Philip says is driven by climate change and warm ocean surface temperatures.
So you can imagine all that residual heat that is stored in the land and the lakes and the rivers and the oceans. And all that has to be given up before we can start getting cooler kind of conditions.
A warm Atlantic is fuel for hurricanes, but few storms have churned up to eastern Canada. There's been a lull. That could soon change.
Then October will be the month where I think there will be lots of storms in the Atlantic Ocean in general, and it still remains to be seen whether they'll make it up to eastern Canada.
Among trees, warmth translates into vibrant colors.
Now, what's important to watch for is nice sunny days, because the sunny days are going to make those leaves produce the reds, the red pigments that we like so much.
Winter will eventually take over.
We've canceled a few summers, but never winters. La Nina is slow to come, but it's coming. And that typically often brings us a colder and snowier, more traditional kind of winter.
Philip says La Nina is delayed, and the longer it's delayed, we will be seeing these warmer conditions across the country. Omar.
All right, Sarah, thank you. And we are getting a tally tonight of what is now the second most expensive weather event in Canadian history. The hailstorm that hit Calgary last month caused $2.8 billion in insured losses. The storm slammed the city with baseball-sized hail, causing damage to many homes, cars, and at Calgary International Airport. The 2016 Fort McMurray wildfire remains the costliest natural disaster in Canadian history at $4.5 billion. New signs today, inflation is cooling in the U.S., raising confidence the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates next week. But the cost of living remains high for many on both sides of the border. In Canada, another indication today of just how much consumers are relying on discount stores to find bargains, which has been a major boost for a Montreal-based company reporting a surge in profits. CTV's Kathy Lee has more on the bottom line.
Scoring a deal isn't just a thrill, it's a necessity these days.
It is challenging.
Challenging because everything is so expensive.
We definitely discount shop. Going and collecting coupons.
All these money-saving strategies benefiting retailers like Montreal-based Dollarama. The company's net earnings in the second quarter increased to $285.9 million compared to $245.8 million last year. And its net sales rose 7.4% to $1.56 billion compared to a year ago.
Whenever there's a downturn in the economy or people will have high record debt levels, we typically see discount stores record record numbers.
Those numbers driven up because of demand for low-priced grocery essentials and other things, even after Dollarama increased its prices above $1 years ago.
You might not get the quality, though, so it's hard to you know. But for things like cleaning supplies, I think they're pretty decent.
Settling for quality because sometimes there isn't a choice. A recent Equifax Canada report shows consumer debt levels rose to $2.5 trillion in the second quarter of this year, marking a 4.2% increase compared to last year. And although inflation is down, the cost of living is still high because there isn't deflation.
I think if Canadians are hoping for deflation, that's not necessarily the right answer. They might need to look for other ways, and that could be either trimming their budget or potentially trying to earn more money.
We just work more. Like, I wouldn't say it's saving. I just think we work all the time.
Data shows more people are taking on side hustles. A few years ago, 30% of the population had a side gig. Now, more than 50% do. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Coming up.
As long as it's a job well done and they got a nice attitude.
There should be an option where it says no tipping.
The great tipping debate rages across Canada, plus Indigenous masks in the spotlight at TIFF. If you feel a little frustrated or flustered every time you have to pay for something, you're not alone. For many consumers, generous tipping prompts have resulted in a tipping point. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on the fatigue and the pushback.
Opinions vary on who deserves a tip and how much should be given.
As long as it's a job well done and they got a nice attitude.
What if a customer believes a tip is not deserved?
There should be an option where it says no tipping.
For some, that could include smaller menu items found at coffee shops.
I don't think it's like Starbucks I should be tipping if I just bought a muffin.
A new survey from Narrative Research digs deep into tipping and finds Canadians are uneasy with the increasing request for tips.
People are happy to tip in restaurants and salons, but much less happy to be asked for a tip in all sorts of other places.
Sit-down restaurants get the most support for tipping at 77%. Salons are 60%. Hotel housekeeping, taxis, and third-party food service are approaching 50%. Retail stores get the least amount of support for tipping at 7%. According to Narrative Research, there are areas where men and women disagree on the principles of tipping. 67% of women think it's okay to tip at the salon compared to 53% for men. As for how much?
More people say 15% for both of those locations than anything else.
At this barber shop, a haircut runs $30 plus tip.
People tips very well. I expect like students, they don't have much money, of course.
When Jenilyn Atienza presents this screen to customers, she keeps her expectations low.
It's their option. We're not forcing them. They have an option to skip the tip.
Possibly a welcome idea for those who say cash doesn't grow on trees.
We don't have enough money to give that away.
Especially during this period of high inflation that features an expectation for higher tipping. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
And still ahead, a dramatic whale rescue in BC. A stressful few weeks for whales recently found in distress off BC's north coast, with one dying and one somehow surviving. Rescuers successfully freed an 11-meter humpback whale entangled in extensive fishing gear wrapped around its head, leaving it unable to open its mouth. The daring 4-day rescue operation involved more than 50 rope cuts. Without help from rescue teams, it's believed the humpback would have suffered a different fate. A small town in British Columbia is doing a double take at a sign bearing the town's name. The bush sign is meant to say Ladysmith, but a dying plant has it reading Lady Smith instead.
I feel like you could do some better landscaping with that sign.
I would hate to think that somebody did a lot of work doing that and spelled it wrong.
The photo was taken Monday by Trine McCall while she was out on her sailboat with her husband.
I noticed that it looked like Lady Smith instead of Lady Smith, so I started to laugh.
On closer inspection, the sign is actually spelled correctly, but the letter M needs a bit more filling in. Perhaps nature will take over with a fix. Well, there are few landmarks more iconic than the Eiffel Tower, and Paris's plans not to bid au revoir to the Olympic rings is at the center of a high-profile feud over its future. The city's mayor is pushing to keep them hanging as a permanent fixture, saying she wants the spirit of celebration to remain. The family and descendants of Gustav Eiffel, who designed the famous tower, are fighting back because they say the move would significantly modify the monument. They want the rings gone after the end of the year and have hired a lawyer. After the break, the meaning behind these masks at TIFF. A fascinating new Indigenous documentary has made its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival. So Surreal Behind the Masks takes viewers behind the scenes of a rarely seen part of First Nations culture. CTV's Donna Sound has the story.
Being on a red carpet is a dream for most. For Neil Diamond and Joanne Robertson, it has become a reality with the premiere of their film, So Surreal Behind the Masks.
It's great exposure, and I hope all of this people seeing the film will, maybe the people who have these masks will want to return them.
Many First Nation cultures don't like spiritual masks to be shown on screen.
We were always checking with the community members to see if it was okay, what wasn't okay.
What do you have here?
In this documentary, Diamond sets out on a quest to find the coveted transformation mask of the Kwakwaka'wakw people of BC's northwest coast.
With the Kwakwaka'wakw, there was that spiritual element to it too. Theirs told more about their origins, of where they came from, their family history.
This quest takes him to Paris, the Yupik territory in Alaska, and to New York, where the coveted mask is found in the collection of a wealthy family of surrealists.
When the surrealists saw these masks, they could feel the power of the masks because they were interested in the dream world.
He sets out to find it and return it to its rightful owners.
They were taken from them. They were stolen. They were put in jail because of their ceremonies.
TIFF 2024's official program features an array of 15 titles with Indigenous directors, actors, and content.
In this 49th year of TIFF, it has now created an Indigenous advisory group. This group works to assist Indigenous filmmakers and attract more Indigenous audience members. Donna Sound, CTV News, Toronto.
And that is a snapshot of this Wednesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and see you tomorrow.